Journeys is recorded at Doghouse Studios. Like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube to keep the conversation going. Remember, if you like the content, share the content. Welcome back to Journeys. Today is Friday, August 27th. I'm Chad Jones, and this is Journeys. So, I want to talk to you about control today. What do I mean by control? Well, there's a lot of things I can talk to you about control. And why I want to talk about it is because it's such an important part of people's lives, things that they don't even realize or things that they don't really recognize as being in and out of their control. So, for example, last night I was out very late partying with my neighbor and his friend Eric. My neighbor Bruce, his friend Eric was in from Saskatchewan, something like that. I can't pronounce the province. I'm a horrible Canadian. So he was in from Saskatchewan, and essentially I brought over my bottle of whiskey, my bong, and some weed, and Bruce always has hash, and he had some beers and whatnot, and we just went to town. We were just drinking, smoking, listening to music, vibing. It was a great time. It was an unbelievable time. But in smoking and drinking, I lost control of my legs. I knew this when I stood up, and I was like, oh wow, I am very, very twisted. I'm going to use the word twisted today. I was all twisted. And yeah, it was an interesting time. And what that did was that pushed Journeys to, it's now 8:55. I'm now recording almost 5 hours after my normal recording session Monday to Friday. Or Monday to Thursday. So that's, again, something within my control. So why I want to talk about control today and why it's so important is because a lot of the time you're put in situations where you're stressed out, you're anxious, you're depressed. Golly, what are some other things people feel? Sadness, anger. You're caught up in your feelings, and yeah, you want to maybe control your feelings, but sometimes you don't have control over your feelings. However, what you can do is take a step back and try to control how you react to whatever is coming your way. Because, for example, say you get into a car accident, okay? And somebody hits you, and let's say that is out of control. You're at a stoplight, someone just flies into the back of you. And now you're stressed out. Well, my car is damaged. I'm hurt. Maybe the person behind me's hurt. And, you're upset. And it's happened to me. I was in a car accident in May of 2018, I believe. Yeah, May of 2018. And we were rear-ended. And essentially, we got all the insurance stuff figured out. And everything was okay on that end. But we were hurt, and we had to go to physiotherapy, and we couldn't control the immediate outcome of it, but we could control how we reacted. Because initially I was angry. I was pissed off. I was like, hey, why did you hit me? Why did you hit my car? What did we do? And I got out and I talked to her, and she was just like, oh, I wasn't really paying attention, and I'm really sorry. And we're like, okay, yeah, we're kind of hurt, and the car's gonna need fixed, so we need to do insurance, and that was fine. It all worked out. But what I'm getting at with this control factor is, well, you had something happen to you that's very stressful, that you try to mitigate how you react to it, and that's the control you look for, is the control when it comes to your situation, your current situation. Now, on a day-to-day basis, what control looks like for me is I get up at 4 a.m. to record Journeys, because I can control that. I can control my alarm. I control that, okay, I roll out of bed, or I, slowly crawl out of bed, or sometimes I just leap out of bed when I have, all that energy to just go. And that was kind of where I was at this week until this morning. Because last night I kind of lost control. And intoxicants do that. And that's another part of control that I find very interesting, very unique to that aspect, which is a lot of people are so afraid to lose control, they sober up. And I get that. I completely get that, because sometimes when you're out of control and you don't have the opportunity to drive anywhere you want to go, or to control your emotions yourself, like, you put yourself in this situation where if you have a beer or 4 and you can't drive, well, now you've lost that element of control. You've lost that place to go, right? Or if you smoke weed, maybe you've lost control of your reflexes and you're a little bit slower, you're a little bit sluggish, or even like when I smoke, I lose control of my thoughts sometimes. They just come at me so fast and so furiously, fast and furious, and they are very hard to kind of separate myself from, and it's hard to separate my emotions. And usually with intoxicants, that's kind of how I lose control, and that's where I lose control. But I actively choose to say, hey, this is going to relax parts of me. And that's what I did last night. I was just like, hey, I would like to take my time, lose a little bit of that control, relax. And I did. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't responsible for Liam. I wasn't responsible for myself, really. I just knew I had to not throw up and get back home safe. And I did both those things relatively well. And what really sparked this whole idea of control was something happened to my coworker. I'm not really going to go into it. It's something I want to leave behind, something I don't really want to talk about, because I think he is still processing it. But essentially, he was put in a very stressful situation. And the only advice I could say is hey man, you're stressed out, you're anxious, you don't want to deal with this, but try to just focus on what you can control out of this situation. Take away everything that's going to happen to you and just focus on the little things you can control. Focus on how you can react to this. And that was kind of the only advice I could give him, because I'm not him. I don't know what he's going through mentally. And again, the thing that happened was he was very stressed out and put him under a lot of scrutiny. And I just hoped him the best. And it's kind of what happened. So, yeah. I mean, looking at a lot of elements of being able to control things in your life, like, again, waking up, your work life, your home life, your emotional balance, all of this stuff. It comes with practice and it comes with hard work, but how do you really develop that sense of control? Or how important does control become to you? Because, I mean, in my head, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I'm doing something and I'm not really realizing I'm the one in control. For example, taking my son Liam to daycare. I am the adult. I have to take him to daycare. He's got to go. And no matter if he's happy about going, if he's upset about going, if he wants to go, if he doesn't want to go, doesn't matter. I'm the adult in control. And to him, Liam doesn't really have control because he's still little, and his obligation is to just kind of follow along what the adults are doing, right? And it kind of sucks for him because he doesn't really have a say. Do you want to go to school? No. Well, that's too bad. You have to go to school. That's just what's happening. And even breaking down, waking up, getting him changed, putting clothes on, feeding him, getting him ready for the car, doing his paperwork for the COVID stuff, getting him physically driving over to work, dropping him off and saying goodbye, and then driving home. All of that is such a power dynamic of me being in charge. But every little step along the way, he doesn't control whether he gets his diaper changed. It happens to him. He doesn't control what he eats in the morning because he can't make what he wants in the morning. It kind of just is given to him. And when I drive, I'm the one in control. If there's a pedestrian that walks out in front of the street, if a car comes, anything can happen, even in the 5 minutes it takes to get to work or to school and back. And you don't really realize how every little thing you're doing, there's a control element to it because you've autopiloted for so long for doing it. So I'm going to control my brake. I'm going to take one and I will be back to talk to you in a couple minutes. So, I have a friend who is stone cold sober. Doesn't smoke weed, doesn't drink, won't drink, hasn't drunk in 7 years now, maybe 8 years now. And this guy from what I've heard, I've never actually known him other than a sober person. So for me, he's no different. But, yeah, that was something in his life that I think something had happened or something had happened to somebody that had fundamentally changed him. And one day he just put down the bottle. And from recollections from my other friends that know him and have talked to him, he was pretty wild when he would drink, and he had a reputation as a drinker. And then when he kind of gave it up, he changed. He changed so much. And from the person I met, he was very straight edge, very, I wouldn't say high strung, but he lives in his head a lot, and he's a smart guy. He's a very smart guy. He's a great musician, and I haven't talked to him in a little while. I want to catch up, but I feel like our conversations kind of just like fade. So I don't know. Maybe I'll reach out to him. Maybe I won't. But the theory amongst all of my friends is that something had happened to him while he was out of control, and he just said, I'm never going to lose that control again. And he hasn't. To my knowledge, I think he's drank once in the last 7 or 8 years, and that was at a New Year's party, and he had a glass of champagne. So did he drink? Yes. Is he an alcoholic? I don't think so. If you can have a drink once and then just forget about it and move on. Maybe he just has that level of control that I don't, but man, he's so stone cold sober. I think that he just kind of gave up on losing control, and he just wanted that. So some other things that I know I was talking about, taking my kid to school, but certain situations that you put yourself in control of. I think it's kind of a reflection of things you can't control and things you can control, and trying to sort out what that is, right? For example, if I thought I had more examples than this, but for work example, right? If you slack off in high school and you don't really think about it and don't really care, and then you go get the first job available and you put your nose to the grindstone, but there's a glass ceiling above you, you can only get so far. You can't really control that, but you can control still showing up every day to work. You can control how hard you work. You can control how much you care about work. And you can even control hey, I'm only going to do this for an allotted period of time, or I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. You can control that, whether you think about it or not, and whether or not you actively say, well, this is what I want from this job. This is what I want from this aspect of my life. Realistically, it comes down to you as an individual. It comes down to, how do I want to look at my work life? What can I control about it? And some people go straight to school, and school is something that's very hard to manage, but completely within your control. Doing homework, studying, pretty much putting up blinders to the world and just saying this is what I have to do right now is a control factor. And yes, I know college students have a reputation for losing control, going out, partying, being kind of kids still. They're just bigger kids. They're kids that can legally get intoxicated. And I think that that's kind of interesting because, again, they have that say over it. I feel like I'm rambling, so I'm going to talk about some other things. Weight. Weight is something that is 100% in control. I know when I was on Tinder, a lot of the time it was, how tall are you? And I'm not tall. I'm shorter than my wife. I don't think she cares. Actually, when we went on our first date, I was almost a foot shorter than my wife. How did this happen? Well, when we first went out, she wore high heels and I was not wearing high heels. I was wearing flats. I was wearing my shoes. And then as we left the car, she was walking on a curb, like the curb by the restaurant, and I was walking on the parking lot, and she was towering over me. And when I say towering over me, like she felt like she was 6'6". She felt like a foot taller than me. And I was just like, by the way, I didn't really mention this. I'm not very tall. She's like, I can see that. Luckily, we had a good sense of humor about it, and she's just such a funny person. And oh, that courtship was so good. That was quite a nice, yeah, I mean, there's another sense of control, self-control with, I was going to talk about weight, but, no, here's self-control. We both lost a lot of weight before we met each other. So knowing each other, just kind of in the situation we were in, we just took each other for what we were, right? What the person was in front of us. And we went to sushi, and we went to all you can eat sushi. And what happened was both of us were kind of gauging each other's, like, if this was like the seventh date or eighth date, we'd already slept together and we knew that this was going to keep going, we probably would have had double the amount of sushi we had. But because it was a first date and we had just met each other, it was more or less like, oh yes, I've had 4 sushi rolls. I'm quite full. Yes. Are you full at all you can eat sushi with 7 sushi rolls? And we kind of gauged each other like, I want to eat so much more. And we didn't. We controlled ourselves just to try to impress one another. Now, I don't know if it would have been more impressive if I was like, this woman who is unbelievably beautiful and unbelievably attractive just ate like 40 pounds of sushi. Or me, who I was like, hey, I'm super self-conscious. I'm living in my own head. I'm still at that point. I feel fat. If I ate like 40 pounds of sushi, we did find out later that we can eat more. We will eat more. And the meal isn't over until we hate ourselves. Again, at that point, we had lost the self-control we had on our first date because, well, we don't need to impress each other anymore. And that brings me back to weight, because I feel like weight is such a big part of my life and where I kind of lack self-control and control in general. Because, I mean, this week I was on the back of the truck sweating buckets. And when I mean buckets, I mean I drank my gallon bottle of water before 9 a.m. and I stopped sweating until I drank more water at like 10:30 because it was so hot. It was so hot that my body stopped sweating until I just refilled my sweat glands, essentially. I knew I was a little bit hydrated because I at least peed while I was on duty. We have the toilet in the back. I call it the toilet, which is in the garbage truck. You just open it up and pee in the back. For those of you who don't know, that's not super sanitary, but hey, it's all garbage. It's going to the dump and nobody else touches it when you're done. And let's face it, it's not the worst thing that we deal with on a daily basis. I think the organic juice... I'm sorry I brought that up. I'm going to move on. Back to my weight, because I seem to be avoiding the topic. I'm still 260 pounds. I can't shake that. It doesn't matter how much I go to work and work out and whatnot. I just think it's the diet. I think it's the eating like junk. I think it's snacking and drinking so much beer. But I love beer. Beer tastes so good. And snacking is, well, it kind of goes hand in hand with smoking marijuana or drinking. And I just got to find that self-control. And whether that self-control comes down to my intoxication level and being able to control that, or whether my food intake needs to change, or how I intake food, when I intake food, I don't know. But I gotta find a better way to maintain my weight. And again, maybe it's just controlling my water levels. Maybe it's controlling how much exercise I'm doing on my 3 off days. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I just lose control to the point where like I lose control of the things I want to control, like eating healthy, or eating just a proper amount of food. Who knows? But I feel like I feel a little bit smaller, and I look like I'm a little bit more toned muscularly just because I've been working 3 weeks. But who knows? I mean, again, this comes back to a couple days ago, trusting the process that whatever you're doing right, hopefully I eat a little bit better. Hopefully I'm working a little bit harder, and I can just trust the process. Well, that was today's episode. I hope it wasn't too rambly. It was very rambly, but whatever. I hope you enjoy it. You pulled something from it. For August 27th, for Friday, August 27th, I'm Chad Jones. This has been Journeys, and I will talk to you on another time.